Hello and welcome back to Totally Abstracted. I'm Michelle, abstract landscape painter and explorer of all things expressive and atmospheric. This season of the podcast is all about the Expressive Artist Toolkit, but not just the physical tools we hold in our hands, but the inner tools that help us grow, the mindsets, the permission we give ourselves, the ways we learn to see. In the last episode, I talked about the power of the catalyst, how a single tool can change how we paint, how it can break us out of old habits and open up entirely new ways of working. This week I'm talking about something a little less tangible but equally transformative, a mindset I like to call the layered mindset, learning to love process over perfection. Every painting has a point where you question everything. You look at the canvas and think, what have I done? It's muddy, it's confusing. It's not what you pictured in your head. The colours aren't singing together the way you imagined. The bold mark you made with such confidence now looks garish, and the composition feels off balance. That right there is the messy middle, the part we all secretly wish we could skip. I can't tell you how many times I've stood in my studio, catalyst wedge in hand, staring at a canvas that looks like absolute chaos. There's this very specific feeling that comes up. It's part panic, part frustration, part genuine confusion about how I got here. And in those moments, there's always a voice that whispers, maybe you should just start over. Maybe this one's not working. Maybe you've lost it. And the one I hear most often is, maybe you never even had it. But here's what I've learned over years and years of painting. That voice is lying. The truth is, the messy middle is where the magic hides. It's where we stop performing and start discovering. It's where we stop painting what we think we should paint and start responding to what's actually happening on the canvas. Layers to me are not just about paint, they're about permission. Each layer says, you can change your mind. You can cover this and let a ghost of it remain. You can be bold and then be gentle. You can be wrong and still move forward. And that's what I call the layered mindset, understanding that nothing you paint is ever wasted. Everything becomes part of the history of the work, even the parts that disappear. I think we fear the messy middle a lot though. We live in a world that loves before and after, a clean narrative. The artist who conjures beauty from nothing with apparent ease. We see finished paintings on social media, in galleries, in magazines. We rarely see the 17 stages of uncertainty that came before. So when we're in our own messy middle, we feel like we're doing it wrong, like everyone else skips this part somehow, like we're the only ones that make mud. But I promise you, every painter you admire has been exactly where you are. They've all had that moment of looking at their work and thinking, this is terrible. The difference is they kept going. They learned to trust the mess. And that trust, that's the core of the layered mindset. When I paint, I often add and then scrape back, revealing fragments of what came before. There's something so satisfying about this process. I'll build up thick layers of paint, sometimes barely letting one dry before adding the next. Then I'll take a palette knife or a catalyst wedge and drag it across the surface, carving through the wet paint to expose the layers underneath. What emerges is never what I planned. Sometimes there's a flash of that initial bright yellow I'd forgotten about. Sometimes the colours blend in ways I could never have mixed intentionally. And sometimes the texture itself becomes the subject, all those ridges and valleys catching the light. It reminds me of how landscapes are shaped by time, erosion, weather, movement. The painting goes through the same process. And maybe we do too. In our lives, we build up, we wear down, we reveal what was hidden. Think about the landscapes that move you most. They're rarely perfectly smooth, are they? There are outcrops of rocks, patches where the earth shows through, places where water has carved channels out over decades. All that complexity, all that history is what makes them beautiful. So sometimes what we thought was a mistake becomes the very thing that gives the piece depth. that muddy patch, it might become the perfect atmospheric shadow. That colour you accidentally mixed. It might be exactly the bridge between two sections that felt disconnected. The same is true for us as artists. Every false start, every failure, every abandoned canvas, all of it becomes part of our creative soil. It's what gives our future work its richness. Nothing is wasted. It's all information. It's all learning. It's all contributing to who you are becoming as an artist. Perfection wants clean answers, but process prefers better questions. And that's really at the heart of it. Perfection says, don't mess this up. Process says, let's see what happens. Perfection says, this should look like the vision in your head. Process says, what's actually emerging here? And perfection says, you need to know where you're going. But process says, trust that you'll know when you get there. The layered mindset is about embracing this curiosity. It's about recognising that painting is a conversation, not a performance. You lay something down, the painting answers back, and you respond back and forth, layer after layer. I think this is why I'm drawn to abstract landscape work. In representational painting, there's often a clear target. You're trying to capture a likeness, a place, a thing, and that's beautiful work, absolutely. But in abstraction, you get to be in pure conversation. The painting tells you what it needs. You respond. It shifts, you shift. When you stop chasing perfection, you start enjoying that conversation again. You notice the texture, the unexpected colour harmony, the way light plays across a patch you nearly painted over. You start to see the beauty in the becoming, not just in the arrived at. So let me give you a concrete example from my own work. Just this morning, I started a piece with a very specific vision. I wanted soft blues and greens, something gentle, atmospheric and mysterious. I worked on it for maybe an hour, building it up using first Derwent ink tints, then gouache with aquapasto, then pastels. But it just wasn't coming together. I picked too many different colours. The pastels I added sat awkwardly on top. I tried to add them before the painting was completely dry, so I couldn't get the blend right. Then I added too much black at the bottom. It was not good. It was the messy middle. I could have stopped, gave it up as a bad job. But instead, I decided to try something. I got out some blue acrylic ink, diluted it, and applied it completely over the painting. I just knew I needed to unify the colours somehow. Now that worked to a point, but the life had then gone out of the piece, and the paper was starting to wear. I stopped filming, yes, I was actually filming all this, and thought I'm going to try something else even more radical. So directly on the paper, I mixed clear gesso with some red acrylic ink and completely obliterated the painting. I then started softly brushing and shaping the clear gesso ink mix around the original composition of the painting to see if this combination would save the paper and, when it was dry, would it be closer to that soft, ethereal, but still full of life atmosphere I was aiming for. And it was. The piece did become more unified and yet also energised too. It is what I had been looking for, but I in no way planned getting there the way I did. So I really like that painting now. I feel I learned something from it. And none of that would have happened if I'd stayed safe. The layered mindset gave me permission to risk it, to trust that even if it didn't work, I'd learn something. And I did. The more I paint, the more I realise how little control I actually have, and how freeing that is. A painting never ends up exactly how I thought it would, and that's precisely why I keep painting. If I could execute my painting perfectly every time, painting would become mechanical, boring even. The excitement, the aliveness of making art, I think it comes from the dance between intention and accident, between what you planned and what actually happens. Each layer holds the story of who we are in that moment, what we need, what we resist, and what we allow. Some days I paint with gentle, cautious marks. Other days I'm bold and decisive. Sometimes I'm willing to take risks. Sometimes I need to stay safe for a while. And all of that shows up in the work. All of it becomes part of the story. The layered mindset reminds us that we're not just painting pictures. We are recording transformations. We're documenting the process of discovery. We make invisible all the ways we learn to trust ourselves. And the best part, you can carry this mindset beyond the studio, into life, into relationships, into how you see yourself. Because life, like painting, is built in layers. And each one, even the messy ones, belong. That difficult conversation you had last week, that's a layer. That moment of joy, another layer. That period when you felt lost, it didn't erase what came before, it added depth. We don't arrive fully formed, we're always in process, always becoming. And when you can embrace that, when you can look at your own messy middle and say, this is part of it too, everything shifts. You become gentler with yourself, more curious, and more patient with the unfolding. So here's my invitation this week. Work in layers. Add something bold and cover it. Try something new and let it half show through. Put down a colour you're not sure about and see how it wants to live with what's already there. And when that critical voice starts whispering, you've ruined it, remind yourself that nothing is ruined. It's just another layer of becoming. Give yourself permission to paint something you might cover, make marks you might scrape back, build history into your work deliberately. Let your paintings breathe through their own archaeology. And notice, really notice what happens when you stop trying to control the outcome. Notice what emerges when you're in conversation instead of command. The point isn't to create perfect paintings. It's to build honest ones that hold the truth of their own becoming. Until next time, keep layering, keep trusting, and keep finding joy in the process. And as always, keep things totally abstracted.